Hey everyone, I'm Greg Nettle and I serve as president of Stadia Church Planting. We're absolutely thrilled that you're here with us today. We're going to wait just a minute for others to jump on. Please use our chat feature to shoot questions to us. We have a great group of leaders with us today that's going to be talking about Easter and what to do, what really is one of the biggest attendance is typically of the year in our churches. And here we are in the midst of the coronavirus crisis. So, what do we do with Easter? What are some creative ideas that other churches are doing? But we'd love to get your questions. So use the chat feature and we'll be able to, get all your questions answered, hopefully, with these great leaders. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm Greg Nettle. I'm president of Stadia Church Planting. We entered the digital world months ago because we started a blue sky session out in Estes Park, Colorado with tech leaders from the tech industry, the business industry from all over the country, some of the greatest leaders, as well as church leaders. Trevor, your guy was with us, Joey Santos, he's amazing. Out of that, we put together the Stadia digital team. Jeff Reed, who's kind of the LeBron James of digital world, joined us, and we have now other support with that because we know that digital church planting is going to be the absolute way to go in the future. But as we've seen with what's going on right now, it's not just church planting. It's how do we launch multi-sites? How do we engage our own churches? How do we go way beyond broadcasting and actually do disciple making? That's what Stadia wants to really engage people in. How do we make disciples who make disciples in the online digital world? But right now we're going to be talking about Easter, so we're going to jump right in. And guys, I have Trevor DeVage, Dave Jane, and Rusty George, and Brandon Grant. I'm just going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and where are you at, what church are you leading, okay? So Trevor, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm in Christ Church in Mason, Ohio, up in the north side of Cincinnati, and I've been here for almost 8 years now. And we are very, very deeply embedded into this digital realm as far as multi-site goes. This is how we do multi-site, is house campuses and digital church outside of our main facility here in the Mason area. We've got a church and a bar locally as well that's all online. And so we're really excited about this conversation today. I know I am because this is our heartbeat. So thanks for putting this together, man.
Yep. Okay, Dave, over to you.
Hi, Dave Jane, Connect Church in Washington, Illinois. Washington is a small community, about 17,000 people just outside of Peoria, Illinois. We are a Stadia church plant. We started in 2013 and meeting in a middle school. And just about 6-8 months ago, we moved into our new facility. And we were looking forward to our first Easter in our new building. So that's now going to be in 2021. So we're now looking forward to our first Easter online.
Hey, Dave, I was laughing. I was going to go, how's that new facility working out for you, man?
It's beautiful. Very, very quiet right now.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Hey, Rusty, let's jump over to you.
Yeah, I'm at Real Life Church in Valencia, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. We're a multi-site congregation, and we've been doing online streaming for probably 7 years. But recently, we've been considering how do we make this a little bit more unique to be an online campus. And guess what? It happened quicker than we thought. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rusty. Stadia has some cohorts launching here in the next few months about, how do you do digital expression? So if you want more information on that, Josie will put information up on that on the chat room and how to become part of one of those cohorts. We'd love to have you all join in with us. Brandon, where are you at?
I am pastoring Rise City Church. We're about 6.5, 7 years old in East County, San Diego. And similar to what Rusty said, we were starting to do some online streaming and things like that, and really starting to talk about digital church planting. And then it is right in front of us right now. So we are all systems go for digital and learning minute by minute.
Yeah, and you just jumped into one of the digital cohorts, didn't you, with Stadia, Brandon?
Mm-hmm.
So excited to have you there. All right, so we have different sized churches, different experience levels, and Easter is coming. Now, we're kind of working from the assumption right now that our buildings probably aren't going to be open on Easter weekend. That could change. We don't know for certain yet, but we're working under that assumption right now. So guys, what are some of the, the thought processes you're going through with your teams right now? We're just going to dialogue here. What are you talking about internally right now with how to do Easter? Anybody jump in?
Yeah, I just had a meeting that I got out of right before we got on here together about this very thing. It was an Easter programming meeting. From a messaging standpoint, for us, it's not changing. Obviously, it's the resurrection. I don't know how you guys feel, but if we can't preach the resurrection right now, we probably ought to not do what we do. But the reality is we're going to take the bent of the resurrection was for healing for this world. The resurrection brings hope. And then what we're going to do is we're going to content now. If we're going to be online, we got to be content driven, because that's what it's not the same as in person. So we've got to have more content. So for us personally, we're putting stories of healing, stories of hope, stories of rising out of the ashes of life around all of this. So we're pre-recording all of that for the next 3 weeks. Our worship teams are pre-recording some stuff as well. As of right now, we've been live on the weekends as far as online, like we're not pre-recording yet. This will be the first week we do that because we have a stay order in Ohio right now. And so we technically, the churches don't fall under that, but we want to be compliant with our government for the most part. And so we're doing everything we can to do that. But for us, it's all story and content of our people, of our places, of where we reside. And we've got house campuses across the country. So we're gathering some content from them as well. And this is what our team talked about is we don't want to diminish the Easter experience because it's online. We feel like we have to do 2 times as much to make the expression be felt as if it was in the room. And so we have to give twice as much energy, twice as much time, twice as much action behind it to get this content. So our team is working around the clock right now to really change our dynamic for Easter as it goes fully online that weekend.
Okay, so you're going pre-recorded. Rusty, what are you guys doing? I want to hear from each of you. Pre-recorded or live for Easter?
Pre-recorded, and we even started that last week. So I'm actually going in today to film this weekend. And then I'll go in obviously early next week to film all of Easter week, which we can talk about that later. But right now we're just trying to do everything pre-recorded in the can so our editing team can patch it together.
Dave and Brandon, what are you guys doing?
We're going pre-recorded.
We're going to do
as well. Yeah,
Dave?
pre-recorded. Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
So we're going to do pre-recorded. That's what we've been doing since for the last 2 Sundays. Again, like Trevor, we're going to try and make some more unique content. But I will say this, I was in an online discussion yesterday with some church leaders who were considering pushing back their Easter service to when they could actually have a physical service. And for me, that's not something we'll do, because the Easter message is what people want to hear on Easter Sunday. And to have that message in July, I just don't think it's going to come across the same. So I think we're going to have some incredible services when we're allowed to open again. I think everyone's going to want to come back and gather together. So the excitement of Easter Sunday, when we have a larger attendance, that's going to happen naturally when we're open again. So for Easter Sunday, we're going to keep the message of resurrection on that Sunday. And like Trevor, we're hoping to include some extra creative elements of stories and testimonies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I told our team yesterday, because we found out here in Southern California, the likelihood of us getting back into our building is probably going to be mid-May or June right now. So we're like all systems go digital, just because it doesn't look like we're getting back into a physical location for a while now. But when we started to look at Easter, there might not be another time in human history that this mass amount of people are all going to be able to dial in and hear the message of Jesus. Like, there's no way that if all the churches are online and the internet's saturated with these services and people are actually considering this, like when it talks about reaching all nations, like at one single point, that can happen now, April 12th. And so we just said, yes, we want to be creative. Yes, we want to do all this stuff, but like, we want to be crystal clear with the gospel presentation and to try to make it reflect, like, most people are in homes, most people are struggling, most people are dealing with economic fallout. So to be overproduced or to look polished and lights and glimmer and all that kind of stuff seems disingenuous from the situation. But the rawness of being in a home and hearing the resurrection is so reminiscent to the very first time that was announced. And we all get to do that. And so we're like actually more excited about it now than actually having a physical service like we were planning weeks ago.
Okay, so this is really fun, Brandon. I love your attitude. We've been encouraging all of our church planters and our partners and so forth to look at this as an opportunity rather than a disadvantage. Guys, can any of you jump in there? How are you thinking about this as opportunity?
Well, I don't know about for the rest of you guys. We've said from day one of this that, this crisis is probably the greatest opportunity the church has had in maybe 100 years. I mean, I would agree with what Brandon said. I honestly believe Easter Sunday is going to crash the internet.
Yeah.
I really do, because the single greatest time in history, there will be no more people exposed to the gospel than April 12th of 2020. And I think the opportunity goes beyond just online, but online right now, like I'm doing an online prayer time during lunch over FaceTime Live in my office. And it's crazy to me is like, there's over 1,000 people a day that are logging into that or coming to it later in the day. And what else are they going to do? So we've got an opportunity to give the gospel to people, not just on Easter Sunday. I know that's the thrust of this, but man, I got guys in smaller churches going, well, it's nice for you guys because you got production teams. I'm like, I got an iPhone. It works.
Yeah.
My iPhone, like I know churches that have set up iPads in their churches and are broadcasting, but anybody can do this from their living room. My kids do it. And so the opportunity now is that people want to hear something of hope because you're not hearing it from Fox News or CNN or anywhere else. Not until yesterday, you've heard the tone change, I think, of hope, because I think people are tired of not hearing hope, but the church is the hope that Jesus left for the world. And so we're able to get information out so much faster. And here's what it's done for us is now people that weren't following anything on social media that would rebel against it with the church. Now they're all following. And like that, we've got instant access, not only to our people, but all their friends, because we request and ask, share this with everybody. Start a watch party. It goes out to all of your friends, not just share it, but start a watch party. I really believe the opportunity to reach millions of people. I think our churches are going to be flooded when the doors open back up physically, because digitally they're filling up quickly.
Rusty, what's going on with you guys opportunity-wise?
Yeah, I think once we decided to get our head around this as an opportunity and not a, oh, this is awful kind of moment, I think it got really good. And what we decided to do was let's capitalize not just on Easter Sunday, but let's start even the whole prior week. So we're starting, it's kind of a typical Passion Week fashion. We'll do content on Palm Sunday about the triumphal entry and all that, explain all that. But then we're treating it like an 8-episode series. So it starts on Palm Sunday, and then we're going to have an episode Monday night at 7 o'clock, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday being obviously Easter. But then we'll follow the Passion Week to some degree, but we'll make it really practical. I shot some videos a few years ago while I was in Israel, so we're going to kind of put those in. And then we're going to take various parts of our team from children's ministry to youth ministry and let them each have a spot in those as well to keep the broader family, because we think families are watching this more than just the adults. Obviously, you have a chance to connect online, but we're seeing more action in our chat rooms or on our hashtag rather than just in our chat rooms, because people are watching through Apple TV and Roku, so they're just on their phones chatting about it there. So we're planning the whole week to be an experience that way. And then to Trevor's point, if we do crash the internet on Sunday, we're just going to show our service every hour on the hour, starting at 7 a.m. Till 7 p.m. Just in case you miss it or it goes down, you can pick it up in another hour.
Okay, so guys, let me ask you this. The decision to pre-record or to go live, you're all pre-recording. What was the deciding factor on that?
I can speak to that real quick. So we were unique in that although we'd moved into our new building, we hadn't yet begun live streaming. We had the equipment almost up and running, ready to go. So so we were kind of forced to pre-record, but we, having done that for 2 weeks now, we found that to be pretty helpful for us, because from a worship point of view, it gives us a little bit of time to record the worship, and then our creative people, they go through and tweak things a little bit. For the preaching, we can overlay the scriptures over the live video as in post edit. So we were able to put out a much cleaner feed The other advantage for us on Sunday was, if any of you are using the church online platform, it's fantastic and it creates a lot of interaction with folks in your church while the live feed is going. It crashed Sunday morning in our first service. They were just overwhelmed with churches using it. So we were able to quickly, because we had the video pre-recorded, we were able to get it to Facebook and then do a Facebook premiere. So by the time second service came around, it was working on that platform, but we also had the option of, so now we know that coming to this Sunday, we'll have the Facebook one ready to launch if the church online platform crashes again.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Rusty, let me come back to you real quick. You're doing that whole week idea is just incredible to me. Can we get a link in our chat to where you're going to be, throwing that up online? So if people want to watch that, they can jump in. I think a lot of people want to do that. Hey, and what are you doing with kids, youth, anything like that for Easter? Yeah, Trevor.
So we're starting this weekend, actually. So our service goes live at 10:20 online, and then service at 10:30. But starting at 10 o'clock this week, so from 10 to 10:15, we're going to have a kids element. And then from 10:15 to 10:20, there's going to be a student element. And then they've got programming going on throughout the week online. Like there's a schedule for our students, a schedule for our kids, that they're going live. And they're like, I wish I can't tell you what that schedule is, but every day they've got something going on for kids and students online through those channels. But for Sunday morning, here's what we found. This may be the first time that I can remember in a long time, probably since I was a kid, that families were actually worshiping in the same room together, because our churches have become so divided. Kids ministry, student ministry, adult worship, is that a lot of times families aren't even in the building together. We didn't want to rip them out of their living rooms and go, now you go to this room for children's ministry, you go to your bedroom for student ministry, and we're going to do adult things in the living room. Worship, that is. That sounded weird. And so we wanted to keep the family unit together for church and kids and students. And so I think Easter Sunday, we're going to do something very similar as well to keep that moving.
And anybody else?
I would go with that kids? For your title, Adult Things in the Living Room. I think that's a great kickoff to a series.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. We're doing similar family mentality that Trevor's referring to. We're like even this next week on Monday, we're doing a thing called Family Communion in the Kitchen. So everybody's joining out on Facebook to take communion together, and we're setting that up for then doing that on Good Friday, but just a different type of reflection for communion. But we're inviting them to do it as families and creating lots of resources for parents to be the primary spiritual influences in the lives of their kids. I love that idea. Trevor said we've been creating custom kids programming and services, but to have it put in front of our broadcast is great, because right now they're watching our broadcast and then later in the day they can go do something with their families. But to include all together, I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Hey, that's a great segue into, okay, so communion. So there's a thing, that we're using in the digital world right now. It's called Phygital, Phygital. It's a real world. It's combining physical with digital. And so it's kind of like, okay, what are you doing with communion? How are you telling people to set that up? Are you sending out communion cups in the little packs in advance? Are you telling them to get their own juice and bread? What are you guys doing?
I mean, we're just encouraging people to get what they have. So if it's not even grape juice, that's fine, because you don't want to go out to the store. We're just telling them it's the understanding of what the elements are versus the actual literal. It's not bread and grape juice or bread and wine, that doesn't work. But we're just telling them to get what they can and do it together.
Yeah, we have the prepackaged communion, the little coffee creamer things. So we just made those available outside our building at a space out there. You can just drive by and pick them up. I tried to get some of our local drive-throughs to provide them there. So as you drove through to get your Chick-fil-A, you could pick up some communion if you asked for it. And apparently there's some liability issues with that. So we couldn't pull that off. But the other thing is just like Brandon said, telling people to do that at home, which is really interesting what people come up with for that. I think jelly beans is the most creative I've seen. So I'm not sure if we're going to hell for that, but anyway, that's what we do in California.
Yeah, so let's stay with it. I want to talk more about this idea of phygital, though. Anybody else do anything? In the past, at River Tree, we've had people, we've had nails, we've handed out to people to hold as we talked about the cross. Those are still some things that we can do with people, saying, "Hey, get these elements in advance." We're going to be talking about that. And any of you guys doing anything creative with the actual teaching time or moments like that?
We haven't. Yeah, I mean, I love using. Sorry about that, man. Go ahead,
okay.
Brandon. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we're supposed to have a baptism Sunday 2 weeks ago, and so for our Easter, we're talking about working with how people are getting baptized in their tubs, and then recording that and then showing that as a part of Easter. And so it's so reminiscent to Acts, right? And so as opposed to coming in here, just let's dunk it at your home tub. And so that's one way we're doing it.
That's phygital at its best, Brandon. I love that. Yeah, Trevor.
Well, we had speaking of the baptism piece, our first weekend we had a couple log in from our community that have never been to our church digitally or in person. We're baptizing them in our building Saturday. They're coming over here to get baptized. We're going to film that, show it. And for the people that say online church doesn't work, I don't know what that really means, because we've seen in the last year 12 people local, like in the nation, guys have flown here to get baptized. We had a girl from Canada get baptized here. In Ghana, Africa, we've seen 35 baptisms in house campuses this year over there. And now 2 from being forced to go online, which we already were, from our local community. They're coming here to get baptized. So for anybody watching this that you're like, I don't know about this digital thing, I don't know, ask those people that are getting out of tubs soaking wet. And Brandon, I'm so excited for what you guys are doing there. I love the idea of encouraging people to baptize one another in their homes. Feels very Book of Acts to me right now. From the aspect of like creative elements, I love to use props a lot. I use a lot of props when I preach, and I love giving people tangible things to hold on to. And so I don't know how that plays out in this, but I saw in the chat room the question of how's this changed our communication style. There's a difference between broadcast communication and live communication. So I think for some people, it's really hard for them to look at a camera for 30 minutes if they're not used to looking at a camera. But somebody asked me, how do you look at a camera for 30 minutes? I'm like, well, I know there's people behind it, and that lens looks like a big eye. So I just stare at it the whole time. But I think you've got to shift your mindset, communication style, from acting like there's people in the room. Everybody knows nobody's in the room. Stop acting like they are. Look at that camera, because those are the people in your room now. And so I think from a communication style, more than tangibly holding on to things, communion, we tell people to bake bread or we had one lady get pineapple juice because her husband accidentally drank the grape juice earlier in the week. But from that standpoint, I just think face-to-face communication is way more now creative for people, because they're not used to being looked in the eye the whole time you're talking. Now you're looking right in their eye. And I think that's been a biggest shift for us in teaching.
Trevor, I'm glad the dude, I'm glad you said it was grape juice the guy drank and it wasn't wine. But my husband drank the communion wine.
Yeah, we're close to Kentucky. It was probably bourbon here. So
yeah, I think this idea of creativity is so important in our teachings, in engaging people. I mean, because we really can, when we're teaching like this, we can say, hey, go grab an Easter egg that you colored this week, and let's talk about that as a family and what that represents, or get your Easter basket and what are the gifts. I don't know, but thinking about creative ways to get people involved in their physical space while they're even listening to us online can go a long way for engagement. Now, when we talk about, are you guys using multiple cameras and shooting, or are you just looking at one camera straight in the eye the whole time?
So when Trevor said that thought popped into my mind. So if our listeners have the opportunity even to have a second camera, and someone in your church or on staff has the ability to either, as it's recording, cut from shot to shot, or afterwards in a program like Final Cut, go from. What we found was very effective this last Sunday was I spoke to one camera in the middle the entire time. And as a speaker, that's hard, because you really have to rethink the way you're communicating, because I'm used to speaking to people in the room and moving around. So for me, what helped was I actually sat on a stool with a table to speak this last Sunday, and I just spoke to the camera for 20, 25 minutes. But because we had 2 other cameras, one static and one was kind of moving around, when you watched it online, even though I was only speaking to the camera the whole time, you kept seeing different shots. And I think if you watch other guys online, some of the Craig Rochelle's, Andy Stanley's, we probably don't realize this, but they're doing that. So that's what people are used to when they're watching maybe even news shows. You're not seeing somebody in a static shot the whole time. But I was encouraged by my creative team, don't keep looking at each camera. You just focus on one. We'll do the cutaway shots to give it some variety.
Everybody else same way, Rusty?
Yeah, I think the one learning we've had is people are watching a lot of content right now on TV. They're not used to sitting there and listening to somebody talk at them for 30, 35 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly for unchurched people, they're not used to turning on something and watching 20 minutes of people singing songs they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to treat our weekend service less like a typical service and more like a Saturday Night Live episode.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch SNL, there's a few things that always happen. There's always a monologue, there's always a commercial, there's always weekend updates. So we thought, all right, what are the things that always happen? And then what are some things that can be unique? And let's kind of schedule out the 45 minutes of the service, which we've tried to go shorter. And let's do it in 7-minute segments at the most.
Mm-hmm.
So pre-recorded, obviously, so that's what makes this easier. You do a welcome, which goes into a song, which goes into a giving moment, which, Greg, as you said in the last webinar, we're doing 3 giving moments, and we're starting early in the message, and then at the end. Then I do a 7-minute teaching, then we'll lead it into communion with a song, and then I'll do another 7-minute teaching into another song, another giving moment. So that kind of, and we just mix it up and have a few moments of creativity. And Trevor, to your point, I love the idea of people sending in stories, because then you can put those in there, and it's really raw, and it's really authentic. So that's the way we're looking at it.
Well, I think that's what drove us. That's what drove us to pre-record this week, is because we've been live, and a lot of people have been telling us, man, it's the most normal thing we get all week is that church feels normal. But Joey's point, who's our online guy, Greg, Joey. Joey's point was people will give you that for a couple of weeks, but that's why we're going to start preaching from different locations in our community. So like the Monkey Bar, where we have our church, one of our campuses, it's called the Monkey Bar, but we're actually going to pre-record there tomorrow, this weekend's message, with multiple camera angles. And like Dave, like I'm going to preach to one, but we'll have multiple angles going around that. One of the other things we've talked about is, because we can't have more than 10 people in a room, right? But potentially inviting the first 10 people that sign up to come sit in almost around with you and actually teach with them. Have them on the platform with you and teach with them in that capacity. But Rusty, to your point, we understand people consume content differently in a broadcast than they do live. And so this week, especially, like we're doing a worship night on Thursday night, it's all digital. And again, it's being pre-recorded today, but it's multiple cameras, multiple angles, 30 minutes, there's commercials, the whole deal. We're going to start a talk show on Thursdays. That's not going to be, let's sit around and talk about church strategy, but we're going to talk about like everyday things, like how does the church view politics? What do we think about sports? Like, just to give people something different to consume, where they can get to know us in a different capacity than just the talking head on Sunday morning on their screens. So.
Yeah, man, so much stuff coming up in the midst of this right now. Rusty, we would love to get your sample order of how you're doing the Easter service. So we'll get that posted in our resources and get that, up. Okay, so guys, with worship, are you all adding worship elements? And when I say worship elements, I'm talking specifically music and singing. Brandon, are you doing that in your weekend, in the Easter gathering?
Yeah, absolutely. And we, not knowing how things were going to play out, we did a large recording night last week. So we bought a group of songs that we can kind of pull from. So if we want to, like, as they're mentioning, have kind of one song here, one song there, so we can we've got a library now essentially to do that. But then we're also going to try to record new, now that I know Easter is going to be different, because people have been watching for a few weeks. If all of a sudden we pull something that they are very familiar, that probably was recorded a month ago, it's going to feel very different. So we're trying to find some outdoor spaces that are permissible. People are stuck in their homes. So our Easter, we're trying to make it, I'm going to try to preach outside. I'm going to try to have music outside and just kind of the empty tomb feel. But yeah, music is an important part of it.
All of you, music, worship?
Yeah, so we've pre-recorded music ahead of time, worship for our worship in music time. It is funny, we're all four of us sat here, and I would imagine that all of us either planted churches or took new churches on with an idea of, man, we're going to break some paradigms here. We're going to do church differently. We've got these new, same message, different format. So, and now we're being challenged, because I'll be honest with you. So our worship segment was like about 6 minutes. And I struggled with that because I thought, man, that's a very short amount of time to be worshiping. But to Rusty's point, this isn't a live, these aren't people sat in an auditorium expecting an hour-long service. So our service last week, worship, giving moments, prayer, message, was 35 minutes altogether. And that was difficult for me, because I felt like that's less, are we dumbing it down here? But the reality is, if people are going to watch online, especially people outside of the church, who I think are a greater target audience every week at the moment, but especially Easter, they may not sit through a 1 hour service. And do you want to lose them before you get to the most powerful part of the morning, the resurrection story, and how this could change your life?
Okay, so let's talk about that specifically. How long are your Easter services going to be? What's the length of them? Trevor?
Ours, honestly, it's probably going to be 55, 60 minutes. We probably lean the other direction because of how much content we already have and we're putting around it. A little bit of our philosophy in this season, while I don't disagree, Dave, with what you just said, some of it's DNA too of our people in our area. We know last weekend we had 6,800 devices on with us for at least 20 minutes or longer. And so as I begin to think through that, people are hanging around right now. Now, I don't think they're going to do that after this thing's over, but we kind of want to give an accurate picture of the experience you're going to get when you show up here. If you live in our local community, we want you to know week in and week out. Our online campus is already used to this anyhow, because we've been doing this for 2 years, and not just broadcast, but actual online church. And so our church is really kind of used to it. I think it just depends on the demographic of your online. And so we've got a DNA that's already that way. So for us to go 60 minutes, our people won't bat an eyelash at that. And it gives new people a really good feel of who we are moving forward for them. And so for us, that's the reason we lean there, is because it's already in our DNA.
Okay, Brandon, how long's your service going to be?
We're trying to program the same amount of time, 55 to 60 minutes.
Rusty?
Probably 45.
Okay, so some of you doing a little shorter, some of you doing about the same. Okay, here's a huge question. Easter, we've all quoted the stat. People are more likely to visit your church at Easter than any other time of the year. People are most likely to respond to an invitation. How are you taking advantage of that with digital? Are you buying time online for ads? Are you, putting it on social media? What are you guys doing?
We had this conversation yesterday, and we felt like that it's probably going to be a barrage of paid advertising that's going to hit everywhere. And so, we're going to do a little bit, but we're just trying to keep it lighthearted. So like the only thing we're doing is we're filming a video that's kind of looking at Easter through the lens of COVID. and it's kind of risky because we don't want to offend people, but what does it look like to still dress up as your Easter in your Easter best? They got to go to their laptop. They're going to Easter egg hunt, and they have to have poles that are 6 feet apart, and the golden egg has toilet paper in it. And so we're just trying to make it somewhat
that's a great idea.
levity, and just to join with us, because I don't know. So that's what we're going to do, as opposed to doing paid advertising. We're going to do a little bit of that, but we just want to hopefully make people laugh, and then maybe that will be an invitation for them.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
We're all doing that now, Brandon.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
You heard it here first. Come on now.
Okay. What else? Anybody else doing advertising? How are you getting?
We do Facebook ads. The first weekend for $15, our reach to Ashley was 3,800 people. For a $15 ad, I think that return on investment was pretty good. And I don't know if you guys follow anything outside of the church leadership, but I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. He's been saying for the last 2 years, Facebook and Instagram ads, and now as TikTok is blowing up, especially because of this virus, because people are stuck at home, so they make stupid TikTok videos, which TikTok Tuesdays ought to be a thing. I think I'm going to start that. If not, you should. But to put ad revenue in Instagram and Facebook, we're talking pennies on the dollar for huge impact, and we've been using them for quite a while now. I believe in this time, it's even more opportunistic for the church because everybody else is doing it. The other thing too, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but if you're not and you're watching this, the Google Grant, I don't know if you guys have a Google Grant. We do, basically for non-for-profits, and you can up to $10,000 a month free ad space through Google. And so you're getting $120,000 a year of free ad space. And we've got a friend in Indianapolis puts together the AdWords and all this stuff for the campaigns for us for about, I don't know the number. It's cheap. And we're running ads constantly where we want to be the number one thing that hits in our community and now in other communities. And so you can apply for a Google Grant, probably get approved in less than a week. And you could, if you got somebody that understands how that works in your church, it'd be really beneficial moving forward for ads for Easter and beyond, because I think the church can't go back to what it was before after this moment. The church has been thrust into a new place. And I think we've got to start thinking in the realm of these kind of things.
Hey, Rusty, are you focusing in your message, in your teaching time, more on the unchurched or more on the churched?
Well, typically we always focus more on the unchurched, but I think with Easter especially, I'll be talking a lot to the unchurched, and really even more than just that. I think it was Judd Wilhite I heard say one time that people are not on a truth quest, they're on a hope quest. And I think certainly through this time, people are really looking for hope, and that's believers and non-believers. So we'll just really focus in on hope. The one thing I would say about the advertising thing, yeah, I think obviously everything Trevor said is spot on with social media. We're trying to create some elements that get people engaged with their neighbors. Obviously with the social distancing, you really can't do that very well. But where we live, I'm sorry to say this for those of you that don't live in California, everybody's outside because it's nice and they're walking, and we've seen more of our neighbors through this time than we ever have before. They're all using the sidewalks. And so what we want to do is we're going to ask our people to buy sidewalk chalk and to do cool designs on their driveway and sidewalks that are like inspirational messages, not just Bible verses and turn or burn or anything like that, but maybe even put the website on there. And then, you know, invite your neighbors to do this and leave packs of sidewalk chalk on your neighbor's front porch and say, hey, let's all write notes to each other when we're out walking, we can read it. And then what we want to do the week prior is fly drones over neighborhoods that have done this a lot and capture it. And then, you know, we can be able to show it on Easter. So not an original idea, but definitely one that we're going to use.
It's the first time I've heard it. I love the creativity.
Brilliant.
It's brilliant. Hey guys, you know, one of the challenges, I was watching different services this past weekend. And one of the things as I was watching some pre-recorded services is I was really, really hungry for engagement. I mean, I get a lot of content now. I can watch different, I mean, people are watching a webinar, but more important is kind of the chat room and the engagement with people. People are hungry for that. So are you guys in your pre-recorded services, is chat running? Is there a way for people to engage?
Well, what we do it is simulated live. So the chat room will still be available when we post that online. Because we use YouTube, Facebook, we use Apple TV and Roku, and obviously Amazon Fire TV. You can't have a chat feature, but YouTube and Facebook we can. And so even when we post that, the chat feature is there. And our online page that we use are actually on our physical website. Chat is available there. So we'll have people available volunteering, but they can do it from home, which is even better. So our volunteers that work the chat room normally have been working remotely. And some of our volunteers are global. We got one that's in northern Canada that she is a volunteer for us on the weekends sometimes as well. But yeah, our chat feature, even with pre-recorded, will be fully accessible in the moment. It will be live chat.
Mm-hmm. And I was gonna say, we're the same way. And right now for most people watching, like especially non-exempt employees, like it's a struggle to find hours for some of them. And so that's one of the ways that we are trying to utilize them, of even taking what was volunteers for a little bit and then having some of our staff, like you're becoming online pastors at this time and chatting and praying with people. So it's still helping them feel valuable and also keeping them occupied doing something versus feeling like, what do I do? And and stuff. So it's been a great way to even encourage our staff to step outside of their comfort zone and just become ministers more hands-on maybe than they did prior.
Yeah.
We use the, I will, even though it crashed last week, I would still give props to the church online platform. It's through Life Church. Just has been a great resource for us. And you can either stream live or pre-recorded through there, but it creates the space for you on the web. And then there's a chat feature built in. So we had staff members, volunteers in the chat room, engaging with people as the message was going on. But I'm going to look for it here in a second and try and post it in the comments. They even have a guide for hosts, which was super helpful. Life Church has produced this whole kind of this whole manual of what you should say, how you should engage with people. Again, this is a brand, for some of us who haven't been live streaming like this on a regular basis, this is a brand new thing we're learning. But a lot of people who have been doing this for a while have got some great resources out there on how we can do this well. From the get-go. So I'll try and find that link to that article that was super helpful for us, and it created a lot of really good engagement. We found the engagement there was better than on Facebook, but what we're trying to do at Connect is we're trying to divert all of our people from Connect to watch online there, and anyone else that they want to invite, but we're still posting a feed in Facebook to catch other people in Facebook world, because we recognize that.
One of the things I noticed even this past weekend as I was kind of jumping around from service to service, there are some leaders, it is so vital that you make it easy for people to get to your service. Mm-hmm. I mean, front page of your website, whatever it is. I had trouble even finding some services at various churches last week. Can any of you speak to that, guys, on how to make it easy?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to our website, the first thing on our website is the countdown clock to the next live service. You click on it, it takes you straight to our service, or we've got a button, literally it says CC Live, which is what we call our service online. If you click that, you go straight there. All of our social media pages take you straight to our live pages, especially on Facebook. If you go to our Facebook page, most of the videos you see are gonna be live services from prior that are still there. I would agree with the statement. You got to make it as easy and accessible as possible on all platforms. And that goes from even the links that you post. Don't make the links complicated because people can't remember those. But, you know, ours is real simple. Just go to our website and click the link at the top of the page, or follow us on Facebook. And the minute it goes live, you're going to know about it. So I think if they got to search for it, they're not going to search long. They'll go to some other church online because now the options are there.
I agree. Hey, Rusty, let's shift gears just a little bit. You were just talking about having 3 giving moments in your Easter weekend gathering. Now, there's a great resource online. We'll put it up on the chat feature here, but we had Julie Bullock from Generis on with us at our last webinar, and she just crushed it talking about how to deal with finances in challenging times. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you watch that. Rusty, let's just talk generally about finances right now. What are you doing with church finances? What are you finding right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would reiterate what Greg said. That webinar was amazing. And I know we're all inundated with webinars right now, but that was definitely worth the time. What we're doing is we're trying to go on the offense rather than the defense. We recognize that even though there's a scarcity mindset out there, people do have a soft spot for senior citizens, for kids that are going without food because they don't have their school system to provide. And so how can we leverage that need they all have and that they all want to help out with? So one of the things we've learned over the years is if you give too many messages of options of how people can help, it just gets lost. So on our weekends, we really focus on give here, and we're giving a portion of all proceeds raised to our local Meals on Wheels program, which is servicing seniors in our community. We've found that there was a shortfall of about $4 per meal. So, you know, as a pastor that's leading the church, you can decide how much of that money you want to give to that, but everybody gets to participate, and thus they start signing up for push pay or giving online or all of that to participate in that. And then throughout the week, with our specific campuses, we focus in on donation centers where you can drop off things to help out people that way. So you kind of have, you know, a 1-2 punch from the weekend to the week. And then we'll take that message on the weekend and we'll do it 3 different times in 3 different ways. And so you can give online, obviously, but like I said, not everybody's watching on their computer where they can click on that link, but they can pick up their phone and text. And so we do the whole text give to this number, and that just basically sends them to the PushPay app they can fill out. I mean, at the end of this, if we turn every one of our viewers that call our church home into online givers, boy, that's a huge win. And then obviously you'll pick up other people that aren't even part of your community.
Yeah, one of the things that Julie said in her webinar that I just want to reiterate here too is, I think most of us are probably, we're online right now. We probably give online and so forth, but there's a portion of our church that still writes checks. And so, you may want to be sending out giving envelopes, to people and finding out, making it, click here on your website to get giving envelopes where people can drop the envelopes off at your building or mail them in. So don't forget that. What else? Anybody else? What are you doing with giving or finances?
I mean, I would just say we are doing similar to what they've said and trying to encourage people to go online and reoccurring stuff like that. But I think that right now, particularly, everyone, I don't know if everybody's the same way, my inbox is filled with requests of money. And so we're also trying to be sensitive that everybody's getting bombarded with these requests, and majority of people's hearts right now want to give towards helping people that are in need. And so as difficult at times it feels like from an organization standpoint or a church, we're trying to lean into that, and we find that people are even more generous. And it's kind of like, as you take care of others, God provides and takes care also of you. So like we've talked about with our Easter service, like we're probably going to have the most amount of people that are watching. What if we give the entire offering away? It has nothing to do with Rise, but we're going to give it all away. We're going to find out something in our community that we can all rally around and give it all away. And we think even on that offering, we'll probably offset, if I try to do about 10 or 15 different initiatives up until Easter, I'll get probably more on that one offering, and we can then focus on giving that away and making a bigger impact, and then concentrating on things that are general giving to the church leading into that point.
Okay, let me ask this. Anybody, yeah, Trevor, you guys, Jay, Dave, anybody doing anything else about giving anything away right now?
I mean, we're doing meals in the community for our local school system. We've packed almost 11,000 meals in the last week, and we're also a distribution center for that right now as well. So drive-through pickup started yesterday, and we'll keep that ongoing. We're doing shopping we've got a retirement village literally 500 yards behind us. And so we've got shopping teams ready to go to help some of our elderly folks. This is interesting because this isn't like a natural disaster of tornado or hurricane where you can go and, pick up debris or build something or clean something. Like, you're being told to stay away from everybody. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why digital is even more important right now, because our goal is to connect people in community. So we've been talking about community the last 2 weeks. It was already planned. It's funny how God does that. But we've been talking about, like, how do we do this to actually keep people in community with each other, even though they can't be in the same space together. And so I think it's a unique time, because in regards of doing things, you got to be careful, because, and it's funny because people are dropping things off. We had the Hindu temple and the Islamic temple drop food off at our food drive and said, anywhere you need us, call us. And I'm like, that doesn't happen on a weekly basis. I don't know if it does in your church. It doesn't in our church. And so to now be crossing religious barriers, to be working together as humanity, I think you're going to see religious organizations, faith-based organizations join together in ways they never have before to do things for the community that we never thought we were going to be doing in some of our local communities before. So those are some of the things we're doing. And the giving front, we're just telling people, like, Greg, I think we were talking about this before we went live. We got really honest with our people and just said, hey, here's the deal. I know it's maybe not at the forefront of your mind right now. Don't forget the church in your donations, because as the church, the more we have in resources, the more we can do it for our community. And here's what we're doing. And so our giving was actually, our offering this last weekend was actually higher than our weekly budget needs. So I think sometimes just informing your people, they don't know what they don't know unless you tell them what they don't know. And I think they want to help. They just want to know how.
Yeah. So first of all, Brandon, I love the idea that you're giving your Easter offering away. My hunch is that God's going to bless that mightily. On the same flip side of that coin, for those of you, whose finances are tight and so forth, no guilt. I would go back to what Trevor just said. And I think you boldly say to people, hey, the church is God's chosen agent of transformation in the world. And it's the best kingdom return on investment that there is, period. And I think we can say that boldly to people. And this is your local church home that you need to invest in. You know, Trevor, I think this idea of, you know, connecting people in small groups throughout the week and in community, everybody's so hungry for that. And I just want to mention, before we wrap up here in the next few minutes, this Thursday, in just 2 days, we have our next webinar. It's with Nona Jones, who's, you know, a nationally known speaker and author on how to connect people in groups in Facebook and different other venues. So join us at 11 o'clock for that webinar as well, with Nona Jones coming up. If you have a small groups person, get them, you know, signed up for that, whoever, but that's going to be a great webinar. What are you guys doing right now to connect people? I mean, we're heading into Easter. What are you doing to connect people right now?
We just went fully online with groups. We're training group leaders. We have a link that we've given them. We've got men's groups on Zoom calls right now. We've got women's groups on Zoom calls right now. Students and kids this week are infiltrating almost every day of the week. So for us, we've actually got a live link that when people sign up to be a facilitator, we actually train them. And Joey and our team have been working on that and just working on how, because even before this, our whole strategy is get you online to take you offline. And right now we need to get you online to keep you online, because offline there's no community happening. So we want to make sure that in this time we get you online to keep you online, to stay in community, that when you go offline, you'll actually naturally be back in community with each other. So we want to make sure we create community in this time when people are hungry for community. And I just said community like 76 times in that last sentence, but the 72. Reality is, oh, cool. I'm glad somebody was tallying that. But we want to make sure that during this time period, we actually, now people want it more than ever. It's kind of reversed, right? We used to like go against it, and now we're for it. And I think people realize they've missed it. And so we can capitalize on that in this time, that once we go back to whatever life is normal is that people actually now naturally be hungry for that community versus slipping back away from it.
Yeah, great stuff. Hey, we have less than 10 minutes. If you have questions, please get those on the Q&A line right now so we can, you know, get those as we wrap up here together. But I wanted to ask each one of you guys, I know you're thinking about your Easter message, you're recording it, it's all there. Give us the, you know, what's the central thesis of your Easter message, Dave?
So we are going to lead up to Easter with a series talking about hope, joy, peace, love. Just we've done 2 weeks in a row now where we've kind of addressed fear and anxiety, and they've been reactive, responsive messages. And I think they've been very timely messages. I think they're messages that they were answers, biblical answers to questions that people were asking. But I think if you keep on talking about fear and what's going to happen, you know, it's time to now turn and say, listen, we've got something that's just as contagious, and that's hope, peace, joy, love. These were around before this, they'll be around afterwards, and these infect people. And let us tell you, you know, this has been happening for thousands of years. This is a biblical principle. So that's kind of the angle we're taking to try and bring a positive. And I was just thinking, you know, so many of us are jumping into these new platforms with digital. This is all new for us. But it takes me back to my church planting days where we had some preview services, and then we had our launch. And I feel like for a lot of us, the timing of this is perfect. We're having these 2 or 3 weeks leading up to Easter where we're kind of tweaking things and I feel like we're all going to be ready Easter Sunday to really launch some great online experiences for what we're learning over these coming weeks. I think it's going to be our best Easter we've ever had as a church.
That's awesome, Dave. Rusty, what's the central thesis?
Just focused on hope. We had already planned on that. We're doing a lot of stuff ahead of time to deal with the, you know, why can we believe this, or how can we believe this? Excuse me. But when we get to Easter, it's going to be, why does this matter? So we're going to, and obviously in the situation we're in right now, people are a little bit more interested in it than ever before. So that's our big push.
Yeah. How about you, Brandon?
We're running off the notion of Still Rolling Stones, that song by Lauren Daigle. We were playing that and just talking about the resurrection was the first stone roller. And even now more than ever, especially in this time, like, he still wants to do that in your life. And so go in that direction with hope. And
golden Easter eggs filled with toilet paper.
Absolutely. That's the greatest hope outside of the gospel right now.
Could somebody quote that, would you, and get that out of?
Right.
Yeah, and Trevor, central thesis.
Well, honestly, we haven't changed much. The resurrection is what brings healing. The resurrection is what rises out of the ashes when you're in despair. And so we're going to talk about, the whole line, resurrecting me. Jesus' resurrection is now resurrecting me. When we participate in the death, burial, we also participate in the resurrection. And some of us feel like we've been dead and buried right now. And God is the God of the comeback and the resurrection of life. And so he's going to take the church and raise up the world in resurrection with him through this. So that's kind of our central theme.
Guys, this is awesome. Hey, Trevor, I think we're going to be with you down at your church in Cincinnati. I believe it's in June for a day-long digital cohort, and people can come and check it out. And we'll get that up on the resources and links and stuff about how to sign up. And Trevor's going, really? Yes, we are, Trevor.
That's awesome. It's news to me today, but thank you for letting me in. That's awesome.
Yep, we'll be down there. You're involved. Joey Santos is involved, and we're going to have our team there to talk about digital as well, that people can because we need to be moving forward with this. So appreciative of all of you leaders who are out there on the front lines. We're going to be praying for you as you head into Easter. Dave, Rusty, Brandon, Trevor, thank you for setting the pace and joining us today. I'm just grateful for everyone, and let's give them heaven this Easter. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Amen.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.